So we are on, this is task 21. This is our necropsy postmortem evaluation. We are a small hospital here. We don't have a lot of, we're one doctor practice. We don't have a lot of clients who are willing to volunteer their animals that have recently passed for necropsy. A lot of people don't want to follow up with necropsy on their animals. So what we did is either I would have to contact the Humane Society nearby, and unfortunately they're a small Humane Society as well, so they don't have any animals at the current time, but we do have this little bird. Someone had brought this bird in. They were worried that it had broken its neck. The way that birds are, they have this really long kind of S-shaped neck. It's very, very hard to break a bird's neck. Almost impossible, actually, because if you think about it, they can turn their head 300 degrees or so. So it's very difficult that way. So I'm highly suspicious that something else was going on with this bird. He was able to move. He was keeping his head to the side, kind of cocked over. But I think maybe something neurological happened, like he ran into a window and possibly had a cerebral hemorrhage. So we euthanized him, and so our doctor injected, we use, I think it's euthanasia solution. We injected it into the abdomen, and he passed away that way. So I wanted to keep him so that we could do the necropsy on him to kind of figure out what was going on. So we are a small animal practice. We see mainly cats and dogs. So for this, you'll probably hear me refer to the Cornell Lab of Ornithology a lot. I worked there for 3 years, and I did a lot of work with the Museum of Vertebrates as well for specimen preparations. So skin specimens, we would do stuffs of the skins so that students could study the birds. We would also do skeletal specimens in which we pretty much debrided all of the tissue off the skeleton, and then gave it to the flesh-eating beetles to clean off, and then we kept the skeleton specimens again for students and other researchers. So I'll probably reference that quite a bit in this video as I'm going. What I'm pretty much going to start with is just overall kind of appearance of the bird. He appears to be in very good state. And I'm just gonna kind of part the feathers here. So birds have feather tracks. One is along this side of the breast, under the wings, the other's on this side. So if you clear the feathers with a blow, you can get right down to the meat. You can see his chest here, chest cavity. So this bird is either young of this year, recently fledged, or it is a male of this year. It doesn't look like it has a brood patch. So a brood patch is this area where the feathers are missing. If this was a bird that we were concerned with having a brood patch, it would be very wrinkly, very vascular, and that helps them sit on their eggs and incubate their eggs that way. Sorry, I'm making a lot of noise. Actually, I'm going to pause you, and I think I might, no, I'll keep the camera there. I was thinking I might move it. But what I am missing that I want to get is just a little cup of water that'll help me out with all the feathers. Sometimes the feathers just tend to stick to the gloves, and having some water helps part the feathers and keep things even. And I also am missing a... I just need a scalpel blade. Okay, so what we're going to use as far as tools are concerned is pretty basic. I just have my needle holder. I have my scalpel handle. I have tissue forceps, thumb forceps. I have 2 sets of scissors in case I need to do some cutting, and then just one regular pair of forceps here as well. So starting with integument, skin looks good. This bird looks pretty healthy, very muscular in the breast. When getting down to the neck, no injuries that I can see or feel. Head feels okay. Beak looks good. If you hold the feathers up to the light, you can see, I'm gonna just turn on surgical lights. You can see if there's any mites. A lot of times these, especially these wild birds, will get feather mites and it looks like dirt within the feathers. But these all look really good. This looks like a really healthy bird. Or was a really healthy bird before it came in here. Alright, and I just took him out of the fridge too, so he's a little cold still and a little stiff. As I work with him, the joints will open up. And I'm just going to use the water to part back the feathers. Now, when I was working for the lab of ornithology, in order to get a skin specimen, what I would have to do is make an incision right down the side of the pectoralis muscles here at the chest. But I think I'm just going to cut that into him that way. Everything else looks really good. His eyes are clear. No signs of conjunctivitis. There are types of conjunctivitis in the wild bird population. You'll see it a lot in finches, specifically like house finches and red finches, but purple finches. I'm sorry, not red finches, purple finches. But this guy looks really good. In case you're wondering, this is a tufted titmouse. So this all looks good. So I am going to get my needle here, my scalpel. I'm not the best at putting my blades on. Okay. Alright. I'm just going to make a small incision to the breast. Okay. Oh, I'm going to grab one more thing. So I'm going to grab a tube and show you guys. So we also used to take samples. So since this is a wild bird and we are a small animal practice, we don't need any specimens from him for our practice, but I'll show you how we did it at the Lab of Ornithology, because we did have some researchers that were looking for specific specimens. So for that, what they were looking for was some of the pectoral muscle, so the chest. They were looking for a piece of the liver and a piece of the heart. I also have a note and a pen here in case I want to write down any notes. Normally as you would go, you'd be jotting down, say the feathers, you would write feathers look good, integument looks good, intact, no injuries, obvious signs of damage, things like that. His feet look really great. So I would be recording all of that, but since we're doing this as a small animal, in a small animal hospital, we don't really have any interest. I'm just kind of doing this for the class. Then I'm not going to worry about it as much right now. I am going to write any particular things down that I find interesting, but so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use my forceps. These might be a bit big, but I'm just going to try to pull the skin away from the body here. Need some more water to get these feathers out of the way. Now, if I was doing a skin specimen, I would be interested in trying to keep as much of the skin together as possible. But since I'm not doing that, then I'm not going to worry about keeping the skin intact for you. I'm just going to kind of pull it up and off. So this is a really muscular bird, not seeing a lot of fat, so probably didn't hang around the feeder too much. This is where that bowl of water comes in handy, because everything tends to stick with these feathers. Alright, so I'm just kind of peeling the skin back off the arm. Here. That snapping you hear is actually the feather shafts coming out. They're a little bit hard to peel off. Feather shafts are always one of the harder bits to get intact when you are doing specimens. Alright, so I'll show you. These are these nice feathers from the wing. I'm just gonna go down the other side. Back looks good. I'll do the head last, I think. Just get everything else cleared. Alright, and as you get to the back, what you do want to be careful of is the pineal gland. So that is a gland right above the tail, and birds use that for grooming. So if you rip that or tear it or break it, you're gonna get all of this gross, stinky, greasy stuff everywhere. The other thing you need to be careful of is around the abdomen. I'm just gonna go there. Around the abdomen, you will, especially the cloaca, if you pull all the skin off that too hard, you'll rip open your abdomen before you're ready to get in there and see what's going on. So I'm trying to avoid that as well. You can see the usefulness in the feathers and trying to, with the water and the feathers, and trying to keep things as clean and free as possible. Okay. Bring up the pineal gland. Try not to. So on the inside, as you can see, most birds look about the same. It just kind of looks like a little mini chicken. So I'm going to do the head. The head's a little difficult as you have to stretch the skin up and over. If you think of the skin on the neck is nice and thin, and then you have to fit it over this big bulbous thing. Try not to pull the eyes out while you're going. Sometimes the use of a scalpel blade around here is good. Kind of cut some of those membranes, make it easier to remove. Also have to cut through the ears. Make sure you're getting the ears off. That'll be another place where you can hang up. That's just about it. Alright. So I'm gonna move. I'm gonna take off my gloves before I touch my camera. And I'll replace them, but I wanted to move you so that I can show you. Sorry. So this is what our tufted titmouse looks like without the tuft. So I haven't cut into the abdomen yet. I will do that next. And then I'll also take our specimen samples. Let me put you back. And I'm going to go grab a new pair of gloves. So for the bird, the feet here, they have 4 talons, 3 in the front, 1 in the back. These are the equivalent of the tarsals in mammals. 1 primary bone, I believe, in the leg, equivalent of the radius and the ulna together. Oh, actually, no, I think they do have a radius. No, I don't remember. You can cut it and find out. They just have 1 bone. It feels like all of the bones are pretty good. I can't feel any broken. Yeah, there's just 1 there. There's a tendon. Okay. So chicken leg, that's what you're getting. This is right here. Then this is the thigh. You're getting the wings. This is the part you would get. So this is kind of the equivalent of our upper arm, our radius, and our ulna here. And then this, there's a small kind of conglomerate. It's hard to see because he's so small. Conglomerate of little bones. That's the equivalent of our hand and our fingers. I think a bird has about 3 fingers. Or what would be equivalent to fingers. It's been a while since I've done my bird biology. Trying to keep my feathers in control. Alright, so before I cut into him, I'm going to get our sample of the breast. And these are actually the ones that we would use at the lab. Okay, so unfortunately having a little bit of camera trouble here, which is great. So I'm not sure how much of the last bit you caught. Probably not much. So I'll flip them over again. I cut into the abdomen. I ran the intestine. Bird's not very long. So everything looks good with the intestine. I got my sample from the liver. There's still a little bit here hanging on. And I put it in my green top tube with my sample of the chest, the pectoralis muscle. I can tell from here, there's just this one little line right here. So that's indicative that this is a female bird, because she does not have any obvious egg sacs present, ovaries present. This is probably a young of the year. So she has not had any eggs, any chicks. She might later this year. Sometimes they do breed the same year if they fledge early, but she has not had any, which is why there was no brood patch either earlier. So if this was a male, there would be two. You would be able to see two little testes, and then the vas deferens, the tubes out. I also opened up the chest. Birds are very light, so bones are light and kind of hollow, so easy to cut into. Right here, I already took our sample of the heart, put it in our tube. Because birds have very small hearts, I didn't want to cut into it to get a good gross look, but everything looked normal. Externally, everything looked good. There is some discoloring in the abdomen, this greenish color, and either that could be bile, possibly from the pancreas. It could also be from our euthanasia solution that we use. It is a bluish color. It also could explain why some of this is kind of starting to degrade pretty quickly, the intestine tract. So that's a possibility. The lung fields, birds don't have quite the same lungs as mammals do. It's all very open and just kind of air sacs, but everything else looks good here. Doing an exam on the back, everything looks good here as well. If I feel up the neck, nothing feels out of place. Like I said, birds have this really long, they don't realize how long their neck is, but it's super duper long. They keep it curled up most of the time like this, so it's really hard. I mean, you can get a good twist out of this. It's really hard to break a bird's neck, or for a bird to break its neck. So looking at the head, beyond just what I have done pulling off the skin, you can see underneath the skull cap, there's a lot of bleeding. Try to get that close for you. There's a lot of this redness between the eyes, down the fissures of the brain, the suturing of the skull, right here in between both of the eyes. You should not be able to see any of that redness. It's probably soft. Yeah, and actually that's probably why this is a young of the year too. So the top is really soft and hollow. And that softness too can be because this is a first-year bird. If this were an older bird, a 1-year-old bird, for instance, if this was a full year old, it wouldn't have this softness to the head, which makes it more susceptible to injury. So I'm gonna try to cut into this. I'm just gonna cut the spine off, which actually is easier said than you would think. And I'm gonna cut through the back. Into here, try to get some of this tissue off. Yeah, oh, there's brain. Brain's coming out. Brain looks like a good color from what's leaking out. I just need to get in. Oh, yeah, there goes the brain. Okay. So there's all that. Yeah, this wouldn't be so soft and easy to open if this was a full adult bird. This would be a lot harder to get into. So what I want to do is just try to go around the front and see if I can crack open more of the skull. Go along the front. Sometimes you can grab between the eyes and then just kind of pull the brain out that way. Make sure my camera's still working after the last incident. Sorry, little birdie. I know the cracking of the skull is always the worst bit. That's where I'm trying to grab between the eyes. Okay. Yeah, so there's quite a bit of intracranial bleeding, or was. So that's our lovely brain. So I'm gonna go with my hypothesis, I'm gonna say that this all supports my hypothesis. This is a young bird, soft skulled. So my guess is ran into a window and now has a lot of intracranial bleeding that shouldn't be there. So I'm gonna guess that cranial head trauma was the cause of death, which is why it was still able to grasp with its back legs, which is why it was still able to flap around, but it was exhibiting all of these odd behaviors. So if I was doing this as a full necropsy, oh, I forgot to put my glasses back on after my camera issue. So after my necropsy, I would say that I would write down my notes that this was related to head trauma, that everything else looked good, integument looked good, intestinal tracts looked good, abdominally, thoracically, everything looked good. And then I would submit my specimen. So again, this is the pectoralis muscle. It's a piece of the liver and a piece of the heart that are all in there. And that should be about it. So it's pretty simple and straightforward that way. And then all I have to do is clean up my space, put in my notes, and I should be good to go. That should be it. Also, I would tell our doctor as well. I would discuss our findings with our doctor, but like I said, we're a small animal practice, and this bird was just for the sake of doing this task. So I don't really have to discuss this with her, but I will let her know because she was interested in the findings as well. But that should be it. Thanks.